You really just set me up here, huh?
Hunter thought that he was just sitting in the chair so that way he could like do the focus for me so that way I could get ready to record a video, which I will be recording a video. Then he was telling me about a video idea he had. So
The concept that I brought to Aaron was this idea of grieving your bad nights in game. So if you go out and you have a bad night in game, it's the idea that this girl rejects you or somebody said something that irked you, and in game you don't have the time to think about it and process that. Processing losses. Even athletes have to process their loss, whether it's chess or basketball. You then have to go back into your loss and process the loss. And the way that you do that is a therapy technique called the grieving process. You've heard of the 5 stages of grief. I'm gonna be honest, I'm not like prepared for this video. Like I don't have like the actual like the stuff, like, yeah, I don't have the 5 steps, but it's like the 5 stages of grief. You're going through this process to not go out bitter the next night. Every night that you stack on these losses and you don't have any wins, especially in the beginning when you're starting out, I feel like that pressure builds up. And this is something that happened to me, and I realized like, oh, I'm actually like I need to start grieving my losses. I need to actually process this stuff, or it's gonna keep building up and I'm gonna get more bitter. One day maybe I'll go MGTOW. You know, I might transform into the wrong person if I don't do this. So
adding to that real quick then and asking this. So I will talk about the losses in a way where I'm talking about kind of like learning from your night. So kind of looking at, you know, what I did wrong and how I could have made that interaction go better and stuff like that. But what you're talking about is basically emotionally processing this bad night out, coming to terms with it, learning to accept it, and therefore then not having it manifest the next night. Last night fucking sucked, can't let that happen again tonight, and kind of like starting fresh. Is that kind of the concept?
like there's a baseline level of like disappointment from all my bad nights that like accumulates over time. If I don't start to think about this stuff, like it's just gonna eat at me. I never get good results when I go out. Like, you know, it starts to get like bad. When you're in that moment, when you're in game, like you shouldn't be thinking about all the theory, right? You need to be doing it. Like it's like when you come back home, that's like the time to recoup and recover. It's not just like go out again. Like this idea of like, you know, you should always be hammering it out and never think about anything. You know, you're getting emotionally wounded. You need to heal that, and then you'll be stronger emotionally when you go out.
Something that was a major shift for me, and anybody that's watched the channel for a long time, they'll know that I'm always talking about how you should be coming home and analyzing your nights out. And what was funny was I actually didn't start doing that until I stopped drinking alcohol. Because what I would do is, and I brought this up in the video we recorded yesterday, so there was a long period of time where even though I was still an alcoholic, I was gaming sober a lot of times. And I would set these standards for myself where I would say, all right, I'm either going to not drink until 1 a.m. or I'm drinking if I'm polling. Those would be like the standards that I set for myself. So then typically the way that would look is then rather than coming home and being like, oh, what could I have done better with that one girl? Let me think about that one conversation I had. I think that it kind of started to go south when I really lost my momentum. I started off being really funny and charismatic, and then I sort of like energetically died out. And instead of looking at all of that, I would come home and open up my honey brown. That's what I would do. And then once I stopped drinking, I realized like I would come home and I would make tea, because hot tea actually really helped me when I stopped drinking. So I would make like kava tea or reishi mushroom tea or something, and rather than basically drowning out like my thoughts and emotions and stuff with the alcohol, I would now be sitting there and thinking with the tea and like really analyzing my night. So it's like partially analyzing it, and then what you're saying is partially then also coming to terms with it. Last month when you were going really hard at games, you were like, all right, 30 days, I'm going hard, and you basically did pick up every day for 30 days. You essentially did a 30-day challenge. Some days, you know, there's a few days of the week, or I'd say about 2 days of the week in Columbus where it's basically impossible to game at night, you know, Sundays and Mondays specifically. You at least were doing day game. During that month, I know you definitely had some bad days, and then you had other times too where I'd even said to you, I was like, dude, this was the first time I've ever seen you game. Like, you fucking were going hard, grabbing on chicks, making out with that one girl, bouncing to the hookah bar. Like, did you have to do any of this during that 30 days, and kind of what was that process like?
So the thing is that I wish I could say I went out all 30 days, but I think I only went out the nights that I felt good. And I think with this type of thing, it's like even on nights where I feel bad, I can be like, well, wait, why do I feel so bad? You know, because that means that in some level I've been stewing, right, about game in some way negatively. And that emotional concoction, it's just like, it's not a moment where I should be going out. It's a moment where I should be processing that. So I feel like my solution during the 30 days was like, oh, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just not go out because I don't feel good, and letting time sort of wash it over. But for this process, it's almost like a speeding up. It's like, okay, well, if I feel bad, it's like, well, let's look at this. Like, why do I feel bad? What do I think isn't going to happen? And why do I think that that's not going to happen? Oh, because a couple nights ago or a week ago, this happened, or throughout all my game career, like this happened, right? So being able to sit down and process it, identify emotionally where I'm at with that, this is like a way of speeding up feeling bad, right? It's like that grieving and processing of the emotions that are negative around games, so that you're not just going out and then putting that energy out there, because I don't want to have a bad night, and maybe that's not like, like you should go out, right? But like my way of going about game is like only go out when you feel good. So
nice. And then something I want to add to that too, because I think it's really it's relevant to anybody that's watching, is, and I bring this up on boot camps all the time, even when I was like low-key boot camping Trey and Ryan the other night, the roommates. I remember like a speech that I gave to them, because both of them are kind of lacking momentum, and when they had gone out recently, like dabbling because they didn't have that momentum, then they weren't having good nights and whatever. And something I just want to tell you guys is, if you've ever been to a casino, so when we were in Vegas, we're walking around and we're in the casinos, you walk by the roulette table, and now roulette is set up in a way where every time you spin the little wheel and the ball goes around, okay, there's a 48% chance it's going to be black, a 48% chance that it's going to be red, and there's a 4% chance that it's going to be green every single time you spin, okay, no matter what happened before. But what they do is, at all the roulette tables, they have a tower, okay, and it's an electronic tower. And what it does is it shows that the last 3 spins were black, and so then they tell you that there's now whatever that would be, like a 66% or a 75% chance it's going to be black again. Yes, it's fake. It's all fake, but they're going off of the odds, right? And it's to influence betting. It's so that way if a guy is walking by and he sees 75% chance it's going to be black, and he goes and bets, right? When in all actuality, no, there's only ever a 48% chance. And where this becomes relevant is, you may have spun the wheel the last 5 times and it was red every time. There's still a 48% chance, no matter what, that it's going to be black. So what I mean, to make this much more practical and literal, as opposed to this whole metaphor, is if the last 5 women that you talked to blew you out, what you're doing is you're carrying the momentum of those blowouts, thinking, well, the last 5 women blew me out, so this one probably is too. Now you reinforce it by going in with that negative energy, that negative mindset. You get blown out again. Knew it was going to happen, right? In the same way, the last 5 nights you went out, you may have pulled every night, and yeah, you're on a hot streak, but going back to the metaphor, it's still just a 48% chance that it's going to happen for you again tonight, right? It's like you got to reset each time, reset mentally. And I remember Jason was filming me doing infield down in Atlanta. And we were at this place called Lenox Mall, and I had green hair at the time. And dude, this mall was just so packed, and I was just like running around and being crazy and shit. And I wasn't really having any positive results though. I think I made a rejections compilation out of this day. And he stopped me at one point during the infield. He's like, dude, and I'm like, what? He's like, we're basically doing a prank video right now. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, you're just going up and just like saying crazy shit. Like, you're not really gaming right now. And I realized, like, in my head, I still was gaming, even though I was being a little crazier. But what I realized is I wasn't resetting each time and treating this new female as a new individual soul and experience, right? So guys will be going out and hammering it out, spam approaching, and now they're going up to chicks and they're lacking massively in this authenticity and in the genuine connection that I'm always talking about. They're lacking in that, and the girl can just kind of feel it, like, he's just like out doing this all night, as opposed to like really trying to get to know me. And genuine connection is the pathway to getting a poll or having some sort of a result with a chick. So do you have anything to add to that?
No. Not really. I mean, that's pretty much genuine. I wish I had like the like those 5 tips, or the grieving process like steps. I know there's like anger and sadness, and like anger is used to cover up sadness. So you're like,
I'm gonna pull that up. While I pull that up, talk about that one night that you told me about in your car with the Santa hat. Tell them about your really bad night out.
Oh man, talk about my worst night out.
Do you have trauma right now?
I do have trauma right now.
Okay.
My worst night out. Oh man. So it was the Christmas weekend, and I had been going out the week before. I had done probably the best I had ever done in game, which at the time was I went out for an hour and actually like spoke to people for an hour. I was so bad at game that there was about 80 different times I had gone to the club by myself, and it wasn't a good time. I would just go there. I would hammer it out to the end, but I would just sit there for 4 hours and not approach. It was pretty bad. But I had one night where I finally like mustered up the courage and like actually started talking to people, not even girls, just like mostly guys. But that was like good for me where I was, just socially inept in every way. And that was my previous week. So this week it was a Christmas sort of club, and I had a Christmas hat and everything, and I started talking to people. And then this is actually less game related and more related to just what was going on in my life. But like, I just had the worst like freak out ever. I felt like in my body, I'm like, I cannot do this right now. Like other things in my life that I've been focusing on have just been going all wrong. And I went out of the club. I went to my car, and I just had a freak out. I just freaked out in my car for like 2 hours. And it was just an emotional release unlike any other. It was just something where I had tried to make my life go in the right direction at that point, I had been in self-development for 10 years, game for like 10 years. Nothing was going right. I didn't know why. I tried my hardest, and I just couldn't get where I wanted to in life. So I kind of just freaked out. I had this 2-hour like freak out in this car. I was like punching my seats and just like freaking out. And once I ran out of energy and steam, I kind of lay there with like just tired, breathing heavily, kind of pissed. And I feel like that was sort of like a forced acceptance. I kind of had to force like accept where I was. And then once I did that, I can't really explain like what happened exactly, but that was sort of my gateway into spiritual concepts and a lot of like, transformation mastery type stuff, all that like emotional stuff. Before that, I was always just like, do it, do it, do it. I was working 16 hours a day. I would wake up at 7:30 every morning on the dot, and every minute of my day was like calculated. It's like the first 5 minutes has to be brushing your teeth, and then the next 5 minutes, like the whole day, every day was just planned. And I think I had just tired myself out, and I had to emotionally process my life. And it took about 4 years for me to like really come out of like a really dark place with that. So that was my worst night in game ever.
Awesome, man. Thanks for sharing that. Here's the grief steps.
Okay, so yes, we got our grief, 5 stages of grief. So denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. So the way that I hear that the stages of grief works is there's this emotional scale. You'll hear in spirituality they have this thing called the emotional scale. And what they say is you could basically take every emotion from the most negative to the most positive. The most negative being things like powerlessness and victimhood, and at the highest part of the scale being things like gratitude, joy, and excitement and things like that. And the grieving process is basically any emotion that you feel towards anything. It's actually somewhere on that grieving process trying to get to a better place, trying to get to a space of gratitude. And this is why in success, they always say that it's really good to do gratitude exercises. It's because wherever you are relative to anything emotionally, bringing that emotion to a higher emotion, a better feeling emotion, a more positive emotion, is getting closer to gratitude. So when you wake up and you express gratitude every day for the things that you have, you're sort of gearing yourself in that, let's just call it a vibration, towards gratitude, gearing all the areas of your life towards gratitude. So if I go out and I have a really bad night and I feel powerless and victimhood, that's the very bottom of this grieving process. That's the part where I am going to have to go on like an emotional journey, let's just say, to get to a place where I feel gratitude for it. So that's the basic gist of it. The 5 stages of grief, it's more than 5. It's more like you're going through all the emotional stages. Of course, you can skip, right? But you're basically going up this process, and each emotion has its own sort of way that you work around it. I was saying a minute ago, anger is an emotion that we use to cover up sadness. So if you're angry, you can say, what's the hurt behind this? And then next thing you know, you're no longer in anger. You're looking at the sadness or how you were hurt, how it felt bad, right? How this person hurt you or that thing hurt you. There's always some sort of way to take the emotion that you're currently at and move it to a better feeling emotion. And it's a matter of learning the skill set of being able to do that. And that's the gist of the grieving process. So Yeah.
Awesome. Cool, man.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing that. And if you guys enjoyed listening to Alpha Chad here, those were really great insights, man. I think that's going to help a lot of guys. And if you guys enjoyed listening to Alpha Chad here, I'm sure that we'll feature you in some videos in the future. But also, they can listen to the latest podcast, which is available over at evolutiondaily.com/podcast, because you were the guest this week, quote unquote. So we had a great conversation about kind of how you joined Evolution Daily and how. And what it's been like and everything. So make sure you guys go check that out, and we'll see you guys soon. Peace. Awesome. Good shit, man.